Commander Vex Null adjusted his sensory apparatus for the third time in 10 standard cycles, watching the bizarre spectacle unfold before him through the observation deck of the Galactic Alliance vessel times Starfall *. Below, on the surface of Kepler 442b, a human settlement sprawled across what should have been uninhabitable terrain. The planet's surface temperature regularly exceeded 45 degrees Celsius. The atmosphere contained trace amounts of methane that would kill most species within hours. And the local wildlife, well, the local wildlife made the legendary bloodworms of Andromeda look like domestic pets. "Tell me again why we didn't glass this rock from orbit," muttered Sub-Commander Crate, her scaled hide shimmering with nervous bioluminescence. The reptilian officer had seen combat on 17 different worlds, but something about this particular human colony made her tail twitch involuntarily. Vex Null's mandibles clicked in what passed for amusement among the Zephyrian species. "Because, dear Crate, the humans specifically requested this world. They called it challenging." He paused, letting that sink in. "They also offered to pay triple the standard colonization fee." "Of course they did," Crate hissed, her forked tongue flicking out to taste the recycled air. "Humans and their death wish. I swear by the 7 moons, they're either the bravest species in the galaxy or the most suicidally stupid." Through the enhanced viewing screen, they watched a human child, no more than 6 standard years old, skip through what the Geological Survey had classified as a Category 5 hazard zone. The little female had vibrant red hair that caught the harsh sunlight like flame, and wore nothing more than shorts and a bright yellow shirt that proclaimed "World's Okayest Kid" in standard galactic script. "Is that youngster carrying what I think she's carrying?" Vex Null asked, his primary eyes focusing on the small cylindrical object in the child's hands. Tactical Officer Zen, a hulking ursoid with fur that had seen too many battles, squinted at his scanner readings. "Honey, sir. Local variant. Extracted from the hives of what the humans have designated murder bees." His voice carried the kind of resignation that came from watching humans do impossible things for too long. "Apparently the little one has been collecting it for her pet." "Her pet?" Crate's voice rose an octave, which in her species indicated either extreme excitement or imminent panic. "What kind of pet requires honey from murder bees?" The answer came in the form of a low, rumbling growl that somehow managed to carry through the ship's hull despite the vacuum of space. On the surface below, a creature emerged from what looked like a hastily constructed burrow. It was roughly the size of a small shuttle, covered in coarse black and white fur, with claws that could probably punch through starship armor. "Sweet nebulae preserve us," whispered Zen. "Is that a Terran honey badger?" Vex Null consulted his xenobiology database, his compound eyes widening as he read. According to the files, honey badgers are native to Earth's African continent. Adult specimens typically measure 0.75 to 1.2 meters in length, weigh between 9 and 16 kilograms, and are known for their aggressive temperament. He paused. "This specimen appears to be somewhat larger than average." "Somewhat larger?" Crate's bioluminescence flared bright yellow. "That thing could eat a Thraxian battle tank." The honey badger, which the human child had apparently named Pickles, according to the intercepted communications, padded over to the little girl with surprising gentleness. Its massive head, easily the size of a cargo pod, lowered to accept the offering of honey with what could only be described as affection. "Okay," said Dr. Miranda Reeves, the human liaison officer who had been quietly observing from the corner of the bridge. Her voice carried that particular mix of pride and exasperation that humans seem to specialize in. "Before anyone starts panicking, I should probably explain about Emma and Pickles." The alien officers turned toward her with expressions that ranged from curious to terrified. Dr. Reeves, a woman in her 40s with graying brown hair and laugh lines around her eyes, smiled in that way humans did when they were about to say something that would give everyone else nightmares. "Emma Walsh found Pickles when he was just a cub. Well, relatively speaking, he was only about the size of a ground vehicle then." She gestured toward the viewing screen, where the massive creature was now playfully rolling on his back, while the child scratched his belly. "You see, Kepler 442b's unique atmospheric composition and gravitational field have had some interesting effects on Earth fauna." "Interesting effects," Vex Null repeated slowly. "You mean it made them larger?" "Among other things. Yes. Dr. Reeves nodded. Higher oxygen content, lower gravity, increased solar radiation, trace amounts of exotic particles in the soil. It's created a kind of evolutionary pressure cooker. Most Earth animals that have been introduced here have grown significantly. The horses are the size of your shuttlecraft. The chickens could probably take on a squad of battle droids, and don't even get me started on what happened to the house cats. Crate's scales had gone completely pale. And you brought a honey badger to this world. Why, exactly? We didn't, Dr. Reeves admitted. Pickles was a stowaway on one of the colony ships. By the time we found him, he'd already bonded with Emma, and separating them would have been. She paused, searching for the right words. Let's just say it would have required more firepower than we had available. On the surface, Emma had produced a bright red ball from seemingly nowhere, and was now engaged in a spirited game of fetch with her enormous companion. Each time, Pickles brought the ball back. The impact of his paws against the ground registered as minor seismic activity on the ship's sensors. How do the other colonists feel about having a kaiju-sized honey badger as a neighbor? Asked Zen, his tactical mind already calculating blast radii and evacuation routes. Dr. Reeves laughed, a sound that somehow managed to be both reassuring and terrifying. Oh, they love him. Last month, a pack of Kepler wolves tried to raid the settlement's grain storage. Pickles sorted that out in about 30 seconds. The month before that, some claim jumpers from the Outer Rim tried to muscle in on our mining operation. Her smile grew wider. Let's just say they decided our territorial claims were perfectly reasonable after a brief conversation with our local wildlife management specialist. Wildlife management specialist? Vex Null's translator was having trouble with the concept. That would be Pickles, Dr. Reeves clarified, though Emma prefers to call him her best friend and professional problem solver. The bridge fell silent, except for the hum of ship systems and the occasional seismic reading from the surface. Through the viewport, they watched Emma climb onto Pickles' massive back, as he began a slow, careful walk back toward the settlement. The sight of a human child riding a creature that could probably level a city block while humming what sounded like a nursery rhyme was surreal enough to make even seasoned space veterans question their life choices. Sir, came a voice from the communications station. We're receiving a transmission from the colony. It's addressed to Emma Walsh. Vex Null's antennae twitched. Patch it through. The voice that filled the bridge was young, maybe 8 or 9 standard years old, with the kind of excitement that only children could muster. Emma, are you there? This is Jake from New Melbourne. My dad says our chickens got into a fight with a mining bot, and now we've got scrambled things and scrap metal all over Sector 7. Emma's voice crackled back through her personal communicator, barely audible over the rhythmic thudding of Pickles' footsteps. Oh no, is everyone okay? Do you need Pickles to come help clean up? Nah, we're good. But Mom wants to know if you can ask Pickles to have a word with the wild boars again. They've been getting into the hydroponics bay, and you know how cranky they get when they eat too much synthetic fertilizer. Dr. Reeves noticed the expressions on the alien officers' faces and sighed. The boars are only about the size of small buildings. Pickles keeps them in line with what Emma calls stern but fair negotiations. Crate's bioluminescence had now shifted to a sickly green. How many of these enhanced Earth creatures are down there? Well, let's see. Dr. Reeves began counting on her fingers. We've got the horses, the chickens, the boars, 3 cats that Emma named Fluffy, Mittens, and Professor Whiskers, a small herd of enhanced cattle, some geese that have formed their own aerial patrol unit, and oh yes, there's Bruno. Bruno? Zen's voice was barely a whisper. The settlement's guard dog. He's a Great Dane mix. Lovely temperament, very good with children. He's only about half Pickles' size, so really quite manageable. Through the viewing screen, they could see Emma sliding down from Pickles' back as they reached the settlement's outskirts. The colony itself was a marvel of human engineering and stubborn determination, with buildings that looked more like fortresses and infrastructure that seemed designed to withstand both natural disasters and kaiju attacks. Gardens flourished in the harsh environment, producing food that somehow managed to thrive in conditions that would kill most galactic flora within hours. How? Vex Null asked, his voice hollow. How do they make it work? Dr. Reeves smiled that particular human smile again. Same way we always do. We adapt, we improvise, and we find friends, in unlikely places. She gestured toward Emma, who was now sharing her honey with Pickles, while a creature the size of a small mountain gently licked honey from her fingers with a tongue that could have been used as a landing pad. Humans have always had a gift for befriending things that should probably eat us instead. The communication system crackled to life again. This time, the voice was older, male, with the kind of calm authority that came from years of managing impossible situations. Colony control to orbital platform. This is Mayor Davidson. We've got incoming weather. Looks like another one of those sulfur storms. Emma, honey, you and Pickles better head inside. That means you too, Jake, and make sure Professor Whiskers hasn't gotten into the emergency rations again. Emma's voice responded with the cheerful obedience of a child who had been through this routine many times before. Okay, Uncle Pete. Pickles says he wants to check the perimeter one more time, just to make sure everything's secure. Tell Pickles thank you, and remind him that the storm shutters are rated for Category 9, so he doesn't need to worry about reinforcing them personally this time. Dr. Reeves chuckled at the confused expressions around her. Last storm, Pickles decided the settlement's defenses weren't adequate. He spent 6 hours pushing boulders the size of shuttlecraft into strategic positions around the colony perimeter. Very thoughtful of him, but it made landing procedures interesting for the next month. As if responding to some signal invisible to the observers, Pickles began moving with purposeful intent around the settlement's borders. His massive form moved with surprising grace, pausing at intervals to sniff the air and test the ground with his enormous claws. The sight of a creature capable of taking on a starship performing what amounted to a security patrol while a human child skipped alongside him, occasionally offering commentary and encouragement, was surreal enough to make reality itself seem negotiable. Colony control to orbital platform, came Mayor Davidson's voice again. Dr. Reeves, we're showing some unusual readings on our seismic sensors. Nothing dangerous, but we've got movement about 20 kilometers northeast of our position. Might be worth keeping an eye on. Tactical Officer Zen's massive fingers danced over his control panel with surprising delicacy. Confirmed, Mayor Davidson. We're showing multiple large contacts moving in formation approximately 19.7 kilometers from your position. Size estimates range from moderately large to, he paused, rechecking his readings, to really quite substantial. Vexnall's primary eyes focused on the tactical display. What kind of movement pattern? Coordinated, Zen replied, his voice carrying the weight of professional concern. These aren't random wanderings. Whatever's out there is moving with purpose and intelligence. Dr. Reeves moved to look over Zen's shoulder, her expression shifting from casual amusement to focused attention. That's not good. The only things on this planet that move in coordinated groups are either human or… She paused, her face growing pale. Or what? Crate demanded. Or apex predators. Dr. Reeves finished quietly. The indigenous species that were here before we arrived. We've managed to avoid direct contact so far, mostly because our settlement is in what they apparently consider neutral territory, but if they're moving in coordinated groups toward the colony. On the surface, Emma had stopped skipping. Her small form stood perfectly still next to Pickles, her head tilted as if listening to something the orbital observers couldn't hear. The massive honey badger's posture had shifted as well, his playful demeanor replaced by something altogether more primal and dangerous. Emma, came Mayor Davidson's voice over the communicator. What's Pickles picking up? The child's voice, when it came, carried none of its earlier cheerfulness. Instead, it held the kind of quiet intensity that made seasoned warriors pay attention. Uncle Pete, she said softly, Pickles says we've got company coming, big company, and they don't smell friendly. The honey badger's response was immediate and unmistakable. A sound emerged from his throat that started as a growl and escalated into something that could only be described as a challenge to the universe itself. It was a sound that spoke of absolute fearlessness, of a creature that had never met a fight it wouldn't take, and of protective instincts that would level mountains if necessary. All colonists to storm positions. Mayor Davidson's voice cut through the growing tension with practiced calm. This is not a drill. Emma, get yourself and Pickles to the community center. Now. But Emma Walsh, all 6 years of her, shook her red head with quiet determination. Pickles doesn't want to hide, Uncle Pete. He says the bad things are coming for his family, and nobody hurts his family. The seismic readings on the orbital platform's sensors suddenly spiked, as something very large and very angry began moving at considerable speed toward the settlement. But before anyone could react to this new threat, a different reading appeared on the displays. This one was moving even faster, and it was heading directly toward whatever was approaching the colony. "Sweet mother of stars," whispered Zen, staring at his tactical display. "That honey badger just went to flank speed." Through the viewing screen, they could see Pickles charging across the hostile landscape with Emma clinging to his back, her small arms wrapped around his neck, her voice carrying across the communications channel with words that would echo in galactic military academies for generations to come. "Okay, Pickles," the human child whispered, her voice somehow audible over the thunder of massive paws against alien soil. "Let's go show them why you don't mess with our family." The honey badger's roar in response was pure, concentrated fury given voice. It was the sound of a creature that had been perfectly content to play fetch and accept honey from small hands, right up until someone had made the catastrophic mistake of threatening what he loved. And in that moment, every alien on the orbital platform understood with crystal clarity why humans had chosen this impossible world, why they had brought their impossible creatures with them, and why the galaxy's most dangerous predators were about to learn a very important lesson about the difference between being apex and being human. The approaching creatures materialized on the thermal scans like nightmares given form. Commander Vex Null watched his displays register heat signatures that defied rational explanation, each one easily the size of a battlecruiser, and moving with predatory grace across the planet's surface. "Analysis complete, sir," reported Zen, his massive Ursoid frame tense with professional anxiety. "We're looking at 12 indigenous life forms, designation unknown. Each specimen measures approximately 130 meters in length, with multiple appendages and what appears to be natural armor plating thick enough to deflect plasma cannon fire." Sub-Commander Crate's bioluminescence had shifted to a pattern that indicated active combat readiness. "Recommendation: immediate orbital bombardment. Level the threat zone before they reach the settlement." "Negative," Dr. Reeves interjected firmly. "Emma and Pickles are already in the field. Any orbital strike would take them out along with the hostiles." Through the enhanced viewing array, they could see the massive honey badger cresting a ridge approximately 5 kilometers from the settlement, Emma still clinging to his back with the fearless determination that seemed to be standard equipment among human youngsters. The little girl had produced what appeared to be a pair of enhanced binoculars from her backpack and was scanning the horizon ahead of them. "Contact established," Emma's voice crackled over the communications array, still maintaining that matter-of-fact tone that made veteran soldiers nervous. Pickles was right. They're big, they're ugly, and they're definitely not here for a friendly visit. A pause. "Also, they smell like rotten eggs mixed with old gym socks." The tactical display updated as the orbital sensors got a clearer reading on the approaching threat. The indigenous predators looked like someone had taken a spider, crossed it with a armored personnel carrier, and then given the result anger management issues. Each creature moved on 8 segmented legs that ended in claws capable of excavating starship hulls, while their main bodies bristled with natural weapons that would make a weapons designer weep with professional envy. "Colony control to Emma," came Mayor Davidson's increasingly strained voice. "Honey, I need you and Pickles to fall back to the settlement immediately. We've got defensive positions prepared and—" "Uncle Pete," Emma interrupted with the patient tone children used when explaining obvious things to adults. "Pickles says if we let them get close to town, people might get hurt. He's not okay with that." The honey badger's response to this observation was to accelerate toward the approaching threats with the kind of enthusiasm typically reserved for children approaching ice cream vendors. His massive form moved across the alien terrain like a furry avalanche with attitude, each footfall registering on seismic sensors as far away as the orbital platform. "Sir," Zen reported with growing amazement, "that honey badger is actually gaining speed. Current velocity measures at approximately 200 kilometers per hour, and increasing." "Doctor," Reeves nodded as if this was perfectly normal behavior. "Honey badgers are capable of remarkable acceleration when properly motivated, and right now, Pickles is very properly motivated. The first contact between Earth's most belligerent mammal and Kepler 442b's apex predators occurred at exactly 1,347 hours, standard galactic time. The aliens aboard the Starfall would remember that moment for the rest of their considerably extended lifespans. Pickles hit the lead predator like a guided missile powered by pure indignation. The impact sent both creatures tumbling across the landscape in a tangle of claws, fur, and what could only be described as extremely creative violence. Emma, displaying the kind of balance that would make circus performers jealous, managed to leap clear at the last second and landed in a controlled roll that brought her to her feet behind a conveniently placed boulder. "Oh boy," she commented cheerfully into her communicator. "This is gonna be good." What followed could best be described as educational, assuming one's curriculum included advanced courses in applied mayhem and postgraduate studies in why you never, ever threaten a honey badger's family. Pickles proceeded to demonstrate that size differences become irrelevant when one participant approaches conflict resolution with the philosophy of, everyone gets hurt, but I hurt less. The first predator, despite being nearly twice Pickles' size and possessing natural armor that could deflect military-grade weapons, discovered that honey badgers have very strong opinions about personal space violations. Specifically, they have strong opinions delivered via claws that can punch through starship hulls and teeth designed by evolution to argue with anything that moves. "Fascinating," murmured Dr. Reeves, watching the tactical display with professional interest. "Note how Pickles is using the creature's own momentum against it. Classic honey badger strategy. When in doubt, go for the throat. And when not in doubt, still go for the throat but with more enthusiasm." The remaining 11 predators, displaying the kind of pack intelligence that had made them apex species on their world, began coordinating their approach with military precision. They spread out in a formation designed to surround and overwhelm their target through superior numbers and tactical positioning. They had not, however, accounted for Emma Walsh's contribution to the proceedings. "Pickles," the little girl called out, her voice carrying clearly across the battlefield. "Remember what happened when Professor Whiskers got into the chicken coop? Use the spinny thing." Commander Vex Null's translator was having difficulty with spinny thing, but Pickles apparently understood perfectly. The massive honey badger released his current opponent, took 3 rapid steps backward, and then began rotating his entire body with a velocity that would have impressed a military drill instructor. "Sweet nebulae," whispered Crate. "He's weaponizing angular momentum." The spinning honey badger became a furry tornado of destruction, his claws and teeth creating a sphere of danger that extended roughly 20 meters in all directions. Any predator foolish enough to approach this organic blender discovered that honey badgers, when properly motivated, could achieve rotational speeds typically associated with industrial machinery. 2 more predators fell to this technique, their natural armor proving inadequate against sustained contact with a creature that had apparently decided to become a living buzzsaw. The remaining 9 predators, displaying admirable tactical flexibility, began adapting their strategy to account for their opponent's unconventional combat methods. "Emma," came Mayor Davidson's voice, now carrying the weight of someone watching his worst nightmares play out in real time. "Status report." "Honey, we're doing great, Uncle Pete," Emma replied with undiminished cheerfulness. "Pickles got 3 of the big ugly ones, and now the rest are trying to be sneaky. But they're not very good at it because they still smell like gym socks." The orbital observers watched in fascination as the remaining predators attempted to implement what appeared to be a sophisticated pincer movement, approaching from multiple directions to overwhelm their target through coordinated assault. It was, by any military standard, a textbook maneuver that should have guaranteed victory. Unfortunately for the predators, textbooks rarely included chapters on honey badger psychology. Pickles, having apparently decided that spinning was entertaining but lacked a certain personal touch, returned to more traditional combat methods. What made these methods particularly effective was the honey badger's fundamental approach to conflict resolution. There is no problem that cannot be solved by applying sufficient levels of controlled violence with extreme prejudice. "Sir," Zen reported, his voice carrying professional admiration mixed with existential dread, "tactical analysis suggests that the honey badger is actually getting stronger as the fight continues. Stress response appears to be triggering enhanced physical performance." Dr. Reeves nodded knowingly. "Adrenaline enhancement. Honey badgers produce stress hormones that function as natural combat stimulants. The longer the fight goes on, the more dangerous they become. It's one of the reasons they're virtually impossible to intimidate." The truth of this observation became apparent as Pickles engaged the next wave of attackers. His movements had gained a fluidity that spoke of a creature operating at peak physical performance, each action flowing seamlessly into the next, with the kind of efficiency that made combat look like a carefully choreographed dance. A very violent, very effective dance. Emma, meanwhile, had climbed to the top of her boulder and was providing tactical commentary with the enthusiasm of a sports announcer covering the galaxy's most dangerous game. "Ooh, nice dodge, Pickles. Oh, that's gotta hurt. Good use of the claw and bite combo there." The fourth predator to fall discovered that honey badgers possess an almost supernatural ability to locate weak points in their opponent's defenses. Despite armor that could withstand military-grade explosives, the creature found itself on the receiving end of precise strikes to joints, sensory organs, and other anatomical vulnerabilities that Pickles seemed to identify through some combination of instinct and malicious creativity. How is he doing that? 9. Crate asked, her bioluminescence flickering between amazement and terror. "Experience," Dr. Reeves replied simply. "Honey badgers are natural fighters. They don't just attack randomly. They study their opponents, identify weaknesses, and exploit them with surgical precision. It's what makes them so effective against creatures much larger than themselves." The remaining predators, now down to 5 members, made what would prove to be their final tactical error. Recognizing that their standard pack hunting strategies were proving ineffective against their opponent's unconventional combat style, they decided to focus their attention on what they perceived to be the honey badger's weakness: the small human who had been providing commentary from her boulder perch. This decision demonstrated a fundamental misunderstanding of honey badger psychology. The moment the lead predator turned toward Emma, Pickles' behavior underwent a dramatic transformation. Where before he had been aggressive, he now became absolutely primal. The sound that emerged from his throat was something that predated language, civilization, and possibly rational thought itself. It was the sound of a creature that had just seen everything it cared about threatened, and had decided that the appropriate response was to end the universe if necessary. "Oh dear," Emma commented mildly, apparently recognizing the warning signs. "Pickles is about to get really upset." What followed was less a fight than a natural disaster with claws. Pickles moved with speed that made his previous efforts look leisurely, covering the distance between himself and the predators, threatening Emma in seconds that seemed to bend the laws of physics. His assault was so ferocious that the orbital sensors initially registered it as a localized seismic event. The 5 remaining predators discovered that there is a significant difference between fighting a honey badger and fighting a honey badger whose family is being threatened. The first difference is velocity. Protective honey badgers move faster than most species can track. The second difference is intensity. Protective honey badgers fight with the kind of focused rage that makes supernovas look like mild disagreements. The third difference is finality. Protective honey badgers do not stop until the threat has been completely and permanently neutralized. "Colony control to orbital platform," came Mayor Davidson's voice, now carrying a note of professional curiosity. "Are you getting readings on this? Because our seismic sensors are showing activity levels consistent with tectonic plate movement." "Confirmed, Colony Control," Vex Null replied, staring at his displays with the expression of someone whose understanding of reality had just been thoroughly reorganized. "The honey badger appears to be generating localized gravitational anomalies through the application of kinetic force." In simpler terms, Pickles was hitting things so hard that space-time was filing complaints. The last predator, displaying wisdom that would have served it well earlier in the encounter, attempted to retreat. This proved to be an academic exercise, as honey badgers possess strong opinions about creatures that threaten their families, and then attempt to leave without properly apologizing. The apology, when it came, was delivered in the form of the predator's complete and unconditional surrender to the laws of physics, as interpreted by an extremely motivated honey badger. The impact crater that resulted would later become a popular tourist attraction for visiting xenobiologists. "All clear," Emma announced cheerfully, climbing down from her boulder as Pickles padded over to receive congratulations in the form of ear scratches and the remainder of the honey she had been carrying. "Pickles says thank you for letting him handle the introductions, and next time the neighbors should probably call ahead before visiting." The silence that followed this announcement was broken only by the hum of ship systems and the occasional beep from sensors that were still trying to process what they had just recorded. Dr. Reeves, Vex Null said finally, his voice carrying the weight of someone whose worldview had undergone significant renovation. I believe I owe your species an apology. Oh, Doctor? Reeves raised an eyebrow. We have consistently underestimated humans. Not because you lack intelligence, technology, or strategic thinking, but because we failed to understand your most dangerous weapon. Which is, Vex Null's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter or hysteria, your ability to make friends with creatures that should, by all rational measures, view you as either prey or competition. Instead, they view you as family. And family, apparently, is worth fighting the entire universe to protect. On the surface below, Emma and Pickles began their leisurely journey back to the settlement, the little girl chattering about the day's events, while her massive companion listened with the patient attention of someone who had just proven that love, properly applied, could indeed move mountains. Or in this case, could move approximately 12 apex predators into early retirement. Colony control to orbital platform, came Mayor Davidson's voice, now carrying undertones of parental exasperation. Emma Walsh, young lady, when you get back to town, you have some explaining to do about why you didn't wait for backup. Emma's response carried across the communications array with the cheerful defiance of a child who knew exactly how much trouble she was in and had decided it was worth it. Pickles says he was my backup, Uncle Pete. And besides, somebody had to teach those things some manners. As the Starfall prepared to continue its patrol route, leaving the human settlement to continue their impossible existence on their impossible world with their impossible companions, Commander Vex Null made a note in his official log. It was a simple notation, but one that would influence Galactic Alliance policy for generations to come. Recommendation: when dealing with human colonies, approach with extreme caution. Not because humans are dangerous, but because their friends might be. And nobody, absolutely nobody, wants to explain to Galactic Command how they managed to get into a fight with a 6-year-old girl and her pet. The honey badger's roar of agreement echoed across the alien landscape, a sound of pure contentment from a creature that had spent a pleasant afternoon protecting his family and was now looking forward to dinner, belly rubs, and perhaps a nice long nap in the sunshine. After all, being the galaxy's most effective security system was exhausting work, but somebody had to do it. And Pickles, with Emma's gentle guidance and unlimited supply of honey, was more than happy to volunteer for the job.